Thanks for the introduction. I'm excited to be here. This is often a topic I hear a lot about with my clients is social media partnerships. They're not quite sure how to go about it and what's the right way to engage with people. So this will help us talk through from a strategy standpoint, bringing it into how you actually reach out. So I'm going to share my screen. Oh, there we go. All right, so I don't need to go through this introduction. Thank you for the introduction, Andy. And go to the next slide. Actually, before we move on, I'd love to take a minute to kind of go through who we have on the phone with us or on the conference with us, just because I feel like if we all introduce ourselves, we get to know each other a little bit better. I'd love to hear your name, your business, and then if you have any specific questions about partnerships today or things that you're hoping to learn about today, feel free to share that. So I took a look before everyone signed on. So if you want to just join in and say your name, feel free. If not, I might start calling you guys out.
Well, how about this? Becky, I'm looking at the names. I'm just going to call people out to people talk.
That sounds great.
How about Erin Allison?
Hey, yes, I'm Erin Allison. I'm the director of Hunt's Honey. We also have, I'll go ahead and speak for Jordan. I think Jordan's on here. Jordan is she actually is our creative design person who runs our most of our online presence. We kind of collab. She does a lot of the imagery. I do a lot of the writing. Yeah, so that's Hunt's Honey and Drink at the Well.
Awesome. Welcome back, Erin and Jordan.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us. Next down the list, I see Frida Ullman.
Hi, I'm Frida Ullman. I'm with Pigtown Main Street, and I'm joining in just to see whether I could pick up some suggestions for our businesses.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us, Frida.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're happy to have you, and yeah, happy to be connected back again with Pigtown Main Streets. Next on the list, I see Brandy.
Hi, I'm Brandy MIB, owner and creative director for MIB Design Studio. This is my first Made in Baltimore session. I just wanted to kind of pop in and see what things were about. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks for joining, Brandy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I see Jordan next, but oh yeah, Jordan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jordan. As Erin said, I do run the creative design aspects for Hunt's Honey. We've been Made in Baltimore members for, I don't know, a good bit now. Oops, sorry. But we're super excited. We learn a lot from these workshops, and we're excited to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Jordan. All right, next I see Brian Seymour.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, hi, I'm Brian Seymour. I am the director and founder of Brian Seymour Supply Group, which is a creative agency that runs out of Baltimore City to help national and international companies build better relationships with their local communities.
Thanks for joining us, Brian.
Next on the list, I see Lakeisha.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lakeisha Rahman, and I'm the owner of Kiki's Cuisine. We are a gourmet desserts business. And this is our first Made in Baltimore workshop, and we're new to Made in Baltimore, so we're looking to pick up a lot of tips and hopefully expand our business.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, happy to have you for your first workshop. Let's see, we've got down next we have Anne.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yay. Okay. Hi, I'm Anne, and I'm a photographer here in Baltimore. And I do photography, and I sell some prints too.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Anne.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Next, I see Allison. Is that Allison Fomich?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can.
Hello. My shop, Allison Fomich, Tiger Lily Shop. I have a jewelry business where I make handmade jewelry, and I have a little tiny shop in Mount Vernon Marketplace.
Thanks for joining us again.
And last but not least, I'm gonna cycle back up to the top and see Akos.
Hello, everyone. My name is Akos Rigo with Rigo Clothes. We create beautiful clothes and accessories using Ankara fabric from West Africa in order to reconnect and renew. And I'm interested in learning more about social media collaboratives.
Very good. Thanks for joining us, Akos. All right. Thank you so much. I'm happy to hear everybody's names and voices and what your business is. I'm going to try to remember those businesses so I can work in some real life examples. If I don't, I apologize. But I'm excited to move on. All right. Let's see. So today, as we mentioned, we're going over social media partnerships and collaborations. I just wanted to give an overview of what we're going to be touching on. So it's going to be, we're going to talk about different types of partnerships. So determining what's the best partnership or collaboration for yourself, whether that's a co-branded project or you're reaching out and working with an influencer. We will then talk through what these collaborations or partnerships can do for you. And for your business, and then we'll talk about how to find the right partner for your business, how to reach out, and then after that, how to determine if it's working for you. So next up, I wanted to use just a way to think about brand relationships is kind of like co-hosting a party. So there's a few different ways this can go about. So you're co-hosting with another friend, and they asked if you could host at your house, not during coronavirus, obviously, but they asked if they can host at your house. They offer to bring food and drink because you're hosting. You guys both are able to invite people. They invite people that you're excited to talk to and connect with. You both collaborate on doing the decorations. Everyone leaves the night really excited and they met new people. The other way this could go is that, again, someone reaches out and say, hey, can we co-host a party? They want to do this at your house or your venue space or something like that. And they invite a ton of friends, people that you wouldn't be looking to connect with. And on top of that, they don't offer to do anything. So they do not bring food, drink, they do not help with decorations. So you have basically hosted a whole party for this other person. You leave at the end of the night, not really connecting with anybody and creating relationships after that. So try to think of that in the sense of when you're working with a brand or an influencer and making sure that it's valuable for both parties, and that everyone is contributing. You're talking through what are the different things you're going to contribute, and you're able to leave that party or that brand relationship with new connections with other people. So I'll try to remember that as we go through and kind of reference different ways that you can make this party good for you. So first of all, I wanted to talk through what are the different types of brand relationships. And so I have two on the right and two on the left. Two on the left are the co-branded partnerships. So this is with another brand. So partnership, and I'm using partnership and collaboration through this whole presentation kind of interchangeably, but this is my chance to be able to tease it out a little bit more so you understand the difference. So partnership in the sense of this is a long-term relationship. And so a good example here is Taco Bell and Doritos. And so they have worked together to create a product that they sell at Taco Bell, and they're doing that long-term. Another way to work with another brand is more from a collaboration standpoint. And so this might be a short-term project or campaign. Sometimes those short-term projects then lead into a long-term partnership. So you want to be sure to treat it that way from the beginning, because if it goes well in this one collaboration, then it is something that could continue on from there. Another type of brand relationship is with influencers. And so in the past, this was a lot more with bloggers. Now with social media and Instagram, influencers is kind of the next wave of this. There's a few different ways that you could do this. So this could be from a paid perspective. And I would encourage everyone, if you're going into the influencer space, to try to think of it from that perspective first. So this is when you are paying for this person to promote something in exchange for that payment. You might also give them free product in the process, and just so that they don't have to spend anything in order to be promoting your product. Another way to do this is for trade, or it might be considered gifted. And so this is something that a lot of influencers are open to, but you don't want to go in assuming this because at the end of the day, trading products, gifted products do not pay their rent. And so you can't assume what their situation is. This might be something that they're doing full time. This might be something they're doing on the side, and they need to make sure that the time and energy they're putting towards it does result in payment. But there's ways to talk through that together, and I'll get more into that later. And I wanted to share a few examples of these. And so another example of a co-branded partnership is Betty Crocker and Hershey's. And so Betty Crocker, you've got your cake mixes and brownie mixes, but Hershey's is really well known for their chocolate. So together, they came together and they've been doing this for a long time. And it just gives people that third-party trust of like, that chocolate's gonna be good because they know it's Hershey's. And then on the same thing, Hershey's is able to extend their brand into a space they wouldn't have done normally. Another example is a nice local one. So this is the Bootlegger bag, and this was between Trees and Toting and Flying Dog. And so they were able to collaborate to create a specific bag that then has a space to hold your beer on the bottom, and it's a cooler down below. And then up top, you can put all your stuff. And so I like their little image too, as the business and the party. And then examples from an influencer example this is Shay Lee. She's a wonderful local influencer. She's doing this with Absolute Vodka. And so this is a paid partnership. And if you were to, and you can see that actually in her post there, it says a paid partnership with Absolute. And then to the right is another example of an influencer, and was clear that it was gifted, is that in his caption, he did say #gifted. And so again, that might have been a situation where he wanted luggage, and however much does luggage cost versus how much he would charge for a paid promotion, it might work out. So those are some great examples, and that is the Creative Gentleman. He does a lot of work in the Baltimore and DC area, and he has beautiful photography. So now that we've talked about what types of partnerships, I want to just reiterate the why. So partnerships can help you with each phase of the customer journey. So this starts in awareness. So someone becomes aware of your product. Then they move into engagement, and maybe they're engaging in person, or maybe they're engaging online, which then leads into this purchase. So where brand partnerships can help so in that awareness phase, you're able to work with them to reach a wider audience. They have a built-in fan base, customers, whether it's social media or people that are purchasing. You're able to build trust and transfer that loyalty. So if they are trusted and they have a loyal fan base, in them working with you, their customers now trust you because they trust that brand to work with somebody, and vice versa. Is then your followers, your customers, then build this trust with them. So you're able to go back and forth. So then that goes into the engagement phase. And what's fun here is this brand personality halo effect, is what I'm going to call it. So someone may follow a brand or an influencer because they're fun and they know all the great spots around town and these local businesses, and there's different types of influencers, whether it's food or beauty or things like that, but their brand personality will then have a halo effect to you, and vice versa. And then from there, another type of engagement is they might be able to create original content for you. And so that's what a lot of influencers, that is what you are paying for, is not only to reach that wider audience, but they're also creating those photos of Shay and the Creative Gentleman. They created those themselves, and it feels more authentic than something you might share with their followers. From there, another benefit of working with a partner is the purchasing. So at the end of the day, we want to be able to sell our products, sell our services, and in order to be successful. So what can a partner, they can help drive traffic. So whether they're driving traffic to a product page, to an event, things like that. And all those purchases might not happen immediately, but ultimately they are able to drive traffic. And then it goes from there. If they're sharing with their friends, it goes back to the awareness and continues on from there. So now that we know why they're important, we want to talk through how to do this. So how do we set up a successful partnership? So I'm going to go through each of these steps individually, but high level, we're going to set the goals. We're going to ideate who we want to work with and how, and then we're going to reach out to them, and we're going to define what the project is. We're going to agree with each other of what each person is going to do, and then we're actually going to execute and do it. From there, we're sharing it out. We're going to share both ways with our followers, their followers. And at the end of it, we want to be able to stop and learn so that if we do this again, we can set better goals, we can change our approach. So let me dig into each step here. All right. So our first step is setting social media goals. So in order to have success, you have to define what you want to achieve. And for each of you, that's going to be a different thing. It depends on where you are in your business or what you're trying to achieve this year, this quarter, and things change. So your goals that you might have had in the beginning of this year have likely changed. So there's been a lot going on. From here, I just wanted to give a few examples. And so also I wanted to reference, I believe Tatiana was able to send out a worksheet beforehand. So if you do have that, I had questions on there. It's something you can revisit after this. If not, I'll talk through these questions. But this is a great one to be able to think through, is just setting social media goals. So I'm going to talk through a few examples, write down some notes of like, what are some goals that you would like to achieve? So one of these are building brand awareness. So what is brand awareness? It is how many people, and we're going to talk specifically on social media, how many people on social media know that you exist and they understand what kind of products or services you offer. And some ways to be able to measure this are in the number of mentions, and sometimes this is tagged and sometimes it's not, but both are beneficial. These are the shares that people are sharing with their friends and their family. It is the post reach. So you're able to look at this in Instagram and Facebook. You can look at analytics and see how many people you were reached, and then impressions. And so reach is how many people, impressions is how many times do they see that. So one person might have seen this multiple times, and that's great because the more times they see it, the more they're going to remember it. So that is a great goal to start with. Next goal could be establish an engaged community. So this is creating a connection between your brand, the individuals and their identity, and culture. And so this is something where your followers feel like they're part of something bigger and they want to be able to support it. And so this is, I mean, this is the basis of what the Be More Creatives was built on, was being able to create this connection of fellow creatives who they felt connected with other people in the city. They wanted to be a part of it. They started tagging the Be More Creatives. We were able to share it. They were able to connect with other people. So that's a big thing. And what's great about that for a brand is then you have this group of people that they feel connected to each other. And they want, if you come out with something new, they want to be able to share it with other people. Some ways to measure this are your follower growth, your engagement rate, your engagement rate to me is more important than your follower growth. So this is, your engagement rate is the number of people liking posts, commenting posts, sharing, etc. Divide and you multiply. Sorry, let me start over. You add that up, the comments and likes, and then you divide that by the number of followers you have and multiply that by 100. What that does is give you a percentage, and no matter how many followers you have, you're able to compare this percentage a long time. From there, it's also, you can measure your engagement with the number of people are sharing it, saving it, link clicks. These are all great things that then help with algorithm as well. Another goal is gaining customer or market insights. So I believe that every partnership is an opportunity to listen to feedback from that other partner you're working with, but also their followers, their audience. So you can learn more about your target audience through this. So it's really important to debrief when this partnership is complete, or if it's an ongoing partnership, making sure you have check-in points and be able to share learnings, because they might see something that you didn't see yourself. And another goal here is increasing sales. We talked about this. While this is the ultimate goal, it is only one measurement of success. So even if you were to do a collaboration and you only got a few sales out of it, remember of these other things: building that brand awareness, having that engaged community, being able to learn more about your customer. These are all things that they might they might buy something now, but they might buy something later, and they at least are aware of you now. So, but ways to be able to measure this are codes. So if you are driving to a purchase on your website, maybe an influencer can share a specific code that their followers can use, and then you can see how many people are using that code and how many people then are going directly from them to that. One thing to remember with that is not everyone remembers to use codes, and so you might still be getting some other people. Another way to measure is with trackable links. So Linktree is a good one, Bitly is a good one. You can give the other brand or the influencer a specific link so that you can see how many click through. This is really great too for, especially if you're working with any influencers or brands that are over 10,000 followers, because in their stories, they can share links in there, and then they can be able to see how many link clicks that they're getting. So before I move on from social media goals, I just wanted to take a minute just for you guys to reflect on what goals could a partnership help you with, but also ask if you guys have any questions. Again, feel free to put it into the chat or just unmute and jump on in.
Becky,
Right.
I did have one question.
Yes, please.
You ran through a formula, I think, on an engaged community that was like, add these things, divide these things, and multiply by. Could you repeat that?
Absolutely. So that is the engagement rate. And if you do Google it, there is some debate on how you want to measure it, but one of the most basic ways to do that is if you're looking at one post, how many people have liked this? So take the number of likes, say 50 likes. Take the number of people who commented, whether it's like 5 comments, 20 comments, add those together, and then you're going to divide it by your number of followers, and then you're going to multiply it by 100. And so multiplying by 100, it gives you a percentage. So the importance of that is that then you can compare an engagement of, say, someone only has 5,000 followers, and I say only 5,000 followers is great, has 5,000 followers versus someone who has 20,000 followers. You can then compare a percentage for engagement rate for one versus the other, because often as you grow followers, your engagement rate does go down. And so this is something great to remember when you are working with an influencer. I have this noted further on, but asking them what's their average engagement rate is great, because then you can see, all right, they might have X number of followers, but if they're not having people engage with them, then it might not be worth the effort to work together. Any other questions?
I'm pretty new to the software, but I'm trying to see where there is a chat box option. So I was going to ask, it sounds like you mentioned a couple good tools to use. I think you mentioned Linktree and one other. I wanted to know if you could drop those in the chat box.
Oh, absolutely. Yep, so that is Linktree and Bitly. And so Bitly, you can create these shorter links that are great to use in social media because it's just not as overwhelming. But the benefit of that too is then you can see how many people clicked on them. You can also see when people clicked. So you can see like, all right, I shared it on Thursday. I got a lot of people clicking on Thursday. It started to trickle off. So you can kind of see things like that. But then that's also a link that you can share with the brand you're working with or with the influencer you're working with, just another way to be able to track how successful this is. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next step, which is ideating. And I really like this one because this is one of my favorite steps in marketing and business in general. So I wanted to go through some real life examples, and I have some examples of people on this workshop as well. So we're going to go through from the top left, great, and I'm giving these examples by here are like 2 different businesses that could work together, or businesses and influencer, what type of influencer, because there are various types. So one example is that top left. Maybe it's someone who makes blankets, and you are going to pair up with someone who makes cozy apparel, athleisure, things like that. Very important for the work from home life. and you want to then work with a fashion influencer, and that fashion influencer could create this image for you and share it with their followers. Another example is this blue, the second one down. This is one of my favorite artists that we're in outside of Philadelphia. So it's Atwater Designs. And she creates these, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correct, but cyanotypes. And so she creates them with flowers. And so she's actually partnering with another woman who is has a flower farm and is a florist. And so they're going to do a workshop together because she makes this art with flowers, so work with a florist, and then maybe they could pair with a lifestyle influencer to come to the workshop and do it with them, be able to share with their followers. Another example we have here is Anne, who thank you for joining us today. She is a photographer, but she is also trying out these it's new creations that she's making. So she partnered with another photographer, I believe it was Evan Woodard. And so he had this photograph of the conservatory, and she created this design over top of it. And so they've been doing that with a few different photos. So beautiful work. And in doing that, they're able to reach both of their followings and create something unique. Another example of on the bottom left here are bath products and tea. And so those are two things that, like, if you're going to have a bath, maybe having a nice glass of tea, taking care of yourselves, you could pair that and work with a beauty influencer. And again, they can create this content for you and be able to just share more about their experience. And I just noticed that Jordan, before we go too far, you had asked what engagement rate is ideal. So there is a difference, Facebook and Instagram, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I know from Instagram, a 3 to 6% engagement rate is pretty good. Anything over 6% is really good. And then I believe on Facebook, the engagement rate is lower, and I don't want to misspeak, but I believe it's like 1 to 3%. But feel free, there's a lot of resources out there like Later and Buffer and Hootsuite. They all are great resources to be able to see the articles that they have that then have speak more to that. All right, so and some other examples of people that you could work with. So in this, on the right-hand side, top right, so this could be a jewelry company pairing with a clothing company, and then they're gonna work with a fashion influencer. And so again, like jewelry and clothing, they have similar audiences and maybe they have a similar aesthetic. And so being able to share that. Then another example here, this is another local example, is working with a spirits company, or well, they didn't work with a spirits company here, but you could, is that this was a mixer. So they create mixers for cocktails. They could always work with a spirits company, but what the example here is they worked with 2 other influencers from a like food and drink perspective to be able to share out to their audiences. And then another example is maybe it's pottery, pairing that with coffee because you drink coffee in mugs, and with pottery, maybe you have a nice mug that you would like to share. So it's a natural connection. So just again, thinking through how things can pair together, what values, we'll talk more about things to look for. And then my last example is Hunt's Honey. And so they have this box here that they paired their honey with white tea, which is another great local company. And those two, just it makes sense because you put honey in your tea. And so that's something, again, it's they are sharing a target audience. They are using it, their use cases are the same, so it's a natural fit together. All right. And so if you are following along on the worksheet, the questions I have on there, or if you just want to take some notes, is for you to think through right now and name some complementary products or services to your product. And then also what type of influencer could complement your product. So again, the different types of influencers are fashion, lifestyle tends to be a little bit more like all encompassing. Maybe it's a beauty influencer, a fashion influencer, food and drink influencer, just thinking through what kind of content are they typically creating, and is it a natural fit? All right, and then Any questions about who you could work with before we move on? All right, let's keep moving. So I want you to think about your target audience, and that is, I bring it back to this, no matter what social media project you're trying to work on, is always think about your target audience. So who is buying your products? Who do you want to be buying your products? Because maybe those aren't the same quite yet. Who are you communicating to? And I challenge you not just to say anyone who wants to buy my product. I would really encourage you to define it into 1 to 3 categories. Think through what are their values, their age, their location, hobbies, income, job. And then also thinking through, where are they? So are they on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest? Because you should meet them there. But then the next step here is, who are they following? So if you're thinking about your target audience and they follow this blogger or influencer or this brand they are always posting about, they could be, that influencer or that brand could be a great person for you to partner with because they share that target audience. Also, what hashtags are you using? So that's a great way to search around for different brands or influencers. So 2 great Baltimore hashtags. You have Made in Baltimore, be able to search through and see other brands that are tagging or other influencers that are tagging that, or there's the Be More Creatives, be able to search through there. That's something we often hear is like people love looking through the hashtag more than they even like looking at our feed, is because then they can see what's going on around town. And the way Instagram sorts it is sometimes they'll bring up the top post in that hashtag, and that's great to then be able to see, all right, well, they're getting great engagement, so that they might be a good influencer or a good brand to work with. So before I move on to there is just on the worksheet I have is who do you want buying your product and who do they follow? So make sure, take a note of that, of just who are you, who do you want to work with? All right. Next up, these are some other important considerations when you're choosing a partner. So again, thinking through the benefits. I have a beautiful photo here of peanut butter and jelly. So they are 2 different products, but they complement each other so deliciously. So think through, does the other person's product complement yours? Does this partnership bring a unique value add to your customer? So again, just thinking through, it's with tea and honey, if it's pottery and coffee, just bringing those together, they have obvious uses together. And sometimes you might be able to get more creative. Some other examples here, they might be location based. So Union Collective is a great example. Within Union Collective is Well Crafted Kitchen. They are, not only can you order during coronavirus, they've been really pushing their online orders and pickups and things like that. But in doing that, they have also included other people in the Union Collective. You can order your pizza, but you can also order some coffee from Fent Coffee, and you can order some wine as well, and so or some beer. And what they also do is they're working with their CSA. So one of their biggest values, which we'll go into values, is being able to source things locally. So they work with a lot of farms. And so what they're offering to some of the farms they work with and to their customer base is that then you can order some of your produce through there. So you're going to pick up your pizza that you'll eat immediately, but then you also have some delicious produce. And I'll go through some more examples. Next up is values. So do your beliefs, your principles, and your company culture align? And this is really important because those are the things that attract their target audience, their followers. These are the things that attract your audience and your followers. So it's important for not only just the working relationship, because if there's somewhere, I have a just photo here of like move fast and always be open. If that doesn't resonate with you, then like this might not be a good partnership together because you guys are going to be working on different wavelengths. But this is also important so that you feel authentic to your target audience, because you need these brands to fit together in their mind. Another thing that's important is visual identity. So if you were with me 2 weeks ago when we talked about social media strategy, visual identity is one way that you can bring through your brand. It helps people understand your brand. And if it's something they would be interested in. So does the visual identity of who you want to work with align or complement yours, because you don't want two drastically different things, because that's just going to confuse your consumer. So some examples of this, maybe your images tend to be bright and airy, or maybe they're dramatic and moody. Maybe you're very big into colors and being playful, and so just trying to find somebody who fits that. All right, move on here. So just to kind of recap what we talked about when you're ideating is, before you commit to a partnership collaboration, here are some great questions to ask. So feel free to take a screenshot of this, or we're going to be sharing this presentation to those who attended today. But do they share a similar target audience? Is their audience engaged? So remembering that engagement rate, you can ask them for their engagement rate. Would this partnership bring a unique value add to your target audience? Does this brand or influencer align with yours in terms of values and brand culture? Is their photography or content high quality? And does it have a similar visual identity? Because if it is those things, you can expect the same for them to deliver that for you. And are their captions well written or messy? So that's just more of a like how professional or how serious they will take your partnership or collaboration when they're sharing that out. So I'm going to stop here before we move on and see if there are any questions about how to ideate who to work with. So again, feel free to do it in the chat or to chime in.
My question is more in reference to how do you sort of validate or make sure that the numbers that you know you ask for from influencers is correct, or like just a way for me as a business to go in and see what they're giving me, but then go to their profile myself to make sure that like this information matches up.
Yep, I think you're on the right direction. There is one, being able to ask it from them and just ask like, what is their average engagement rate, their reach, things like that. If they're not willing to give that to you, then that's a red flag, because they're likely trying to hide something, especially if it's a paid partnership. If it's a paid, you should be able to ask that. If it's for trade or gifted, it's a little bit more vague, but feel comfortable asking for that. And you can always say it in a way of like, can you share these if you're comfortable? And then from there, once they give you those numbers, yes, being able to do a double check. And so kind of go through a few of their posts and see how many likes are they getting, how many comments are they getting? Do these comments seem authentic, like in the sense that like people are actually like commenting and engaging, or are they just kind of like a bunch of emojis and people are just giving thumbs up? Because that's kind of so engagement. A lot of people use like, there's things called like Instagram pods where they're sharing their posts and you automatically go and comment on it. So it might not be as authentic. And there is a way to be able to pay for followers and pay for comments. So just kind of doing that gut check of like, does this feel real? So you kind of answer that in your question, is being able to do both of that. There's also a company called FOR. It's spelled FOHR. And so what they've been able to bring to the table is actually they influencers connect their account through FOR, and FOR goes in and verifies like, do they have any paid followers, paid comments, things like that, to make sure it is real. So not all influencers are connected to that, but it's worth asking, especially if you are paying for a partnership, then you need to make sure that it is authentic. So great question. Next up, so this is the outreach step. So this is very important, how to reach out. And so some of these are specific to brands, some are more specific to influencers, but I just want you to remember like your first impression. And sometimes this might be a DM, this might be an email. Sometimes a great way to do that is to reach out on Instagram first through a DM and then ask if you can email, because email you can put more information in there. But I encourage everyone to try to connect and introduce yourself thoughtfully. What I hate seeing, and what many other influencers hate seeing, is when it's just an obvious copy and paste and they sent that out to 20 people. Because at that point, they just feel like they're just one other person that you're hoping does this, versus like can we work together? So I encourage you to do your research on this brand or this influencer, like everything we just talked about. You're seeing if it's a good fit, but take some learnings from that. Like, hey, I see that you love sharing. We're just going to use gin as an example. Obviously, I have like gin and tonics on the brain for Friday, but I see you love that, and my product pairs well with it, and go from there. So just being able to take a piece from their Instagram or things that they're sharing and be able to say like, hey, like, I see you, I see what you're sharing, I like what you're doing. Another thing is when it comes to influencers, I mentioned this earlier, is plan to pay. Because you do not want to assume that they're willing to do that for free or gifted, because again, free product does not pay rent. And a lot of people are doing this so that they can do it full time. Or it's just a way to be able to supplement their income, because at the end of the day, like, you need to acknowledge their value. They have spent a long time building a loyal audience. That takes work. It's not just like putting stuff out there. It takes work to be able to engage with those people. It takes work to be able to create beautiful content. And so acknowledge that in this and be willing to pay. There's a few different ways that you can do this. You can ask for their media kit. So if this is something they typically do, they probably have a media kit put together that they can send you that will say how much is a sponsored post. Or you can just ask them, what are their rates for sponsored posts? And in this, if you don't quite have the budget to pay, or you want to see if there's a way to trade or gift, you can ask if they are interested in trading or gifting. And that will be up to them to make that decision. So an example is, I've worked with Wild Kombucha and Akaro tea a few times, and I love kombucha and I purchase it. And so when they asked if I could do a little photography for them, but in exchange for product, I thought through how much would I charge a company to do these photos, and therefore how much kombucha would that be? And so we just traded it that way, because at the end of the day, I'm saving money because I'm not actually going out and buying this kombucha. I'm getting the kombucha I would be purchasing, and in exchange they're getting these photos. So it ended up being this even trade, even though I wasn't being paid. Another thing, let's see, we talked about acknowledging their value. Another thing is to state your intention clearly. Say that you would like to partner, you would like to collaborate. You could provide a few ideas. We just talked through some ideas. But then be clear about defining next steps. Like, hey, I would love to set up a call, and when time comes, I would love to meet up for coffee. But know that their time is valuable. And whether they are a company or an influencer, it's the same with you. Your time is valuable, their time is valuable. So put some ideas out there, state your intention clearly, but also leave room for some collaboration. Don't define the whole project up front, because some people, that's not for them. And so giving enough definition, but enough wiggle room that you guys, showing that you want to work together. And then let's see, we talked about this a little bit already, but if you're paying an influencer after that first communication and outreach of, would you like to work together? Yes, you would like to work together. Ask if they're willing to share their stats. So it's that average engagement rate, what's their reach, what's their location of followers, because maybe that's important to you if you want them to be more Baltimore or Maryland based. Or if you're looking to reach people across the United States, that's a great thing too, is be able to ask where their followers are, because maybe they have a wide variety. Any questions here before we move on about how to reach out to brands or influencers? All right, we're gonna keep on trucking then. Next step is defining your project. So there are a variety of ways that you can work together. So I just wanted to give a few examples of different types of projects. So if you're working with another brand, this could be a giveaway. So you two both have, you have your product, they have their product, you put it together for this package that you do a giveaway on both of your accounts. That's a great way for you to be able to both get new followers. Another way to do this is a styled shoot. And so this is very common in the wedding industry, but it is great across any industry, is to be able to take both of your products again and be able to showcase a use that people do. So trying to think of something off the top of my head. But yeah, styled shoot is just be able to put them together, create these beautiful photographs that you're both being able to share. Another thing is product and content collaboration. So coming back to that very first example of Trees and Toting and Flying Dog, they created this product together. So is there another way to do this? This is another thing. This was Anne and Evan's example as well, is just being able to take their two skills and put them together. Another thing is cross promotion. And so cross promotion, this was very big that I used to work for Order Up, which was a food delivery company based in Baltimore, eventually was acquired by Groupon and Grubhub. But when we were in Baltimore and we were going into new cities, it was really important to do cross promotion. So we would often pair up with an apartment complex and they would share out to their email list that we were coming down, or they would promote on their social media. In exchange, we would promote on our social media, like, hey, we're going to this apartment complex and we'll have bagels there for all people that live there. Another way to do this in the future again is co-hosting event when we can have events again. Ways to work with influencers. So a lot of the items above, but also sponsored content. So you're asking them to promote on their page and they'll have to put on there that it is sponsored. Maybe you're asking them to do a review of your product and you can say, like, you want it to be authentic, but if they do have any issues or things like that, please reach out to you directly so that you guys can figure that out. So you're relinquishing some control there, but you're going to assume that if they're wanting to share that, they're gonna share the positive things. And again, it's just the importance of that relationship is them feeling comfortable to come with you if they have a bad experience. Giveaways, great thing to do with influencers as well. Another, again, product and content collaborations works with influencers. Maybe you ask them to be a long-term ambassador. So I have an example up here. Jojo, the CEO, she is Baltimore based as well. Unfortunately, because of coronavirus, they were not able to do their partnership and their ambassador program, but she still shared for them things that they're doing at this time. Or you could do a takeover of your platform. So whether that's offering for them to share it on theirs or for them to take over your Instagram, then they're going to promote on theirs that they're going to be taking over yours, which is great because that drives people over to your account. Or maybe you co-host an event. So another example here is the Be More Creatives. We did an event with Doobies, and so we have all of these amazing creatives that share their content on the Be More Creatives using a hashtag. We did a project that was the creatives behind the Be More Creatives. So we wanted to actually see portraits of people who are these people and just show the variety of people. And so we worked with Doobies. They wanted to be able to get people into their restaurant. And so this comes back to just the co-hosting a party. They provided food and drink and they helped us do the art gallery layout. We invited our followers to be able to come there. Everyone had a great experience together, that then they were sharing their food and drink on social media. They were sharing pictures on the wall, and the people felt they were really excited about this because they were able to contribute to it and have their photo on a wall. And that was something, if you are not an artist all the time, or maybe this is something new to you, you're new to photography, it was a way for them to be able to have their art displayed in a way that maybe they didn't know how to go about doing that before. And so it was a unique value add for our followers. And then we were able to get people in the space as well. So it ended up being a great event. Before we move on here, any questions around defining your project? If you are following along on the worksheet, one of the questions I have on here is capturing what type of partnership or project you could see your business being a part of. So if a giveaway sounds like a great idea, or a long-term ambassador, I want to just encourage you to write that idea down so that you can kind of connect that back to the other notes you were taking. The next steps here, I'm going to glide over a little more quickly, but this is the agreeing, executing, and sharing. And so the importance here is being able to set expectations. So coming back to your goals, and you want to make sure that this is a success. That's why it's important to define these expectations. And if you're, I would encourage you doing this in an agreement. So maybe this is just an email, or maybe it's a contract. If you are doing a paid influencer, I would encourage a contract. They might have one that they use with other people. If they don't, you can Google it and find a contract and make sure that you're clearly stating who is doing what and when. And so an example is that they're going to do one feed post, they're going to do one story series, they're going to do it Tuesday at 11 a.m. and they're going to share this trackable link that you provided them. And then from a content perspective, maybe they're the ones creating it, you're providing the product. So just making sure that all of these items are clearly defined, so that there's no gap in like, oh, well, you didn't send product, so I didn't do it, or we didn't say when, blah, blah, blah. So you want to make sure it's clearly defined. Another thing is, feel free to provide or agree on brand guidelines. So if it is a brand collaboration, you want to agree on like what the visuals will look like, because your brands are different, but you're combining them together. And again, we're working with someone who has a similar aesthetic. Or if you're working with an influencer, you want to tell them what are some of your brand guidelines. Like, here are some words we like to use to describe our company. Here are some of our brand personality traits that we would love to like this to come through as playful or like stylish or things like that. But at the same time, you need to be willing to relinquish some of that creative control, because at the end of this, you want to encourage creativity, but you want to do it with open communication, because a lot of influencers and a lot of entrepreneurs who start their own brands, they're a creative person. And so they enjoy doing this. They enjoy creating these images. But imagine if you were someone who, you created these beautiful images that you shared on Instagram, but then someone came in and was like, you can only do X, Y, Z, and you can't do this X. They're going to lose that excitement level. And so just, be willing to relinquish some control, but keep that open communication so you know what to expect. Another thing is, when it comes to execute, do what you said you were going to do. I know that like seems really silly for me to say that here, but you'd be surprised how many times projects are planned and you might be the one person sharing and the other person just kind of ghosts you. So make sure that it's the other way around, that you are not the one who's ghosting. I know that you all own your own businesses and things are really busy, but when you're working with someone else, it's a relationship and you need to build that, and they need to have that trust in you. And so if they're sharing these things, show the love back, reshare what they're sharing, tag everything, and that's another big thing too, is make sure you're tagging. Like, if someone created this beautiful photo for you and you're going to share on your Instagram, one of those give and takes, the value that you're bringing is that you're going to tag them so that your followers can go find them. So make sure that you are doing that. All right, next up. The next thing we have here is being able to learn. So this is something that is often forgotten. Again, you're all business owners, you're busy, you have a lot to do. And then same with the influencers or other brands, is that you get through the bulk of the work, you share everything out, and you're like, all right, on to the next. And like, I encourage you to stop and pause and learn. So again, in order to have success, you need to be able to track it. So I want you to revisit your goals. What did you want to achieve here? And then be able to track metrics to be able to see, did you actually achieve that? So did you take note of how many followers did you have before this partnership? How many do you have now? Because you might be seeing those notifications of new followers, but be able to track, all right, I gained 100 new followers through this. And those new followers could be potential customers. Track the number of engagements. It sounds silly, but track the number of likes that post got, the number of comments, shares, saves. Because if you were to do this again, now you can see, okay, compared to that last time we did this one did really well. Or this one didn't do as well. So what can we learn from this? Track the reach, impressions. Again, you can ask the other party how much reach, impressions do they get. That trackable link we talked about, how many link clicks did you get, and then how many product sales as well. So just so that you can keep it all together. For the Be More Creatives, we keep a ongoing list of all the giveaways we've done, because then we can see like how many people commented, how many people started following the other company we worked with, because that helps us understand, was it a good fit and did it help benefit the other company that we were working with. because ultimately that's our goal, is to be able to share all of you amazing creatives and business owners. And if we're not doing that well, then what's the point of us doing it? And then other learnings you can do is just share with the other party. So again, you can share your stats with them. They'll be more likely to share with you, but also ask for any feedback of how this could go more smoothly, like what things could you do differently in the future, because maybe it's your first time working with an influencer and they picked up on things that you didn't. And so if you want to work with another influencer in the future, it's great to take these learnings, and people are willing to share if you're willing to give them that opportunity to give feedback. So that is all of the content I have for today for us to chat through. I love to take however many minutes we need just to talk through. It's 1:08 now. We have until 1:30 if you guys want, just to talk through questions about social media partnerships.
I have one. So should we expect as part of our marketing budget to pay for maybe some of these partnerships, collaborations? And then if so, how, is there a, is it ideal if we would do one a quarter, or, X amount of dollars spent in this way, or something like that?
Yeah, I think that is a great idea, is to plan that out. So often it's very last minute, and influencers experience this a lot, is that, oh, this seems like a great idea, and then we start ideating ways to do this, and then the other person's like, oh, well, I don't have any budget. So I think it's a great idea of what you're saying, is to plan that out, plan a chunk out of your marketing budget. And a sponsored post could be, it could be $50, it could be $200. Usually that's the range. It just depends on how elaborate is this project together, and what are they doing? What are they doing in return? Maybe you're the one providing photos to them, and therefore they're not creating their own content. So that's a little less work on their side. Or maybe they don't have as large of a following. So the more following they have, the more expensive it might be for a sponsored post. And so I think that is a wonderful idea as well, is to plan this out quarterly. So maybe it is once a month, once a quarter. You kind of can see what is, one, from a budget standpoint, what works for you and your business, but then also from a resource and bandwidth, because it does take time to manage these relationships and to do it correctly. So it just depends on how much work, and it could be something that you're doing. You could be working with the same ambassador over a few months as well. So maybe you're asking them to post once in August, once in September, and once in October, just to be able to have the best impact. Or maybe you're working with a different person every month. But I would really encourage you to be able to create this playbook and be able to redo it every single time, because then you're able to learn and improve on it every time. But I love that question of just planning to add that into your budget, so that you can be prepared to work with somebody who aligns well with your business. Any other questions?
Without, of course, without naming specific names, can you give us an example of a partnership that you might have went into that possibly didn't go the way that you planned, and how you were able to resolve it in the end?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any good example. Something that happens often is that someone will reach out and they want to do things now, or yesterday. And this is often with the Be More Creatives right now, is that especially during COVID and just the team right now in our life situations, is we're not doing as much work as we had previously been doing. So we have an auto response of we check in with the team once a week, etc. Somebody will come in and be like, hey, I want to do something tomorrow, and then we'll agree to do it, and they'll want to respond and going back and forth a lot. So maybe we're not a good fit for them at this time, because we're not able to jump onto this. But I've seen with some people, they're quick to respond or to ask us things, but then when we're asking questions, they're not quick. So that comes back to just saying what you're gonna do. And so other things that have happened too are just, yeah, maybe the scope of work changes over time. And so we agree to, like, I've agreed to do something, and then over time they're like, well, can you also do this and share this and do that? And the scope of work, there's a scope creep is what a lot of people might call that. And so you're asking more of a person than what you agreed to in the beginning. So those are a few examples. I think the way to manage that is just, again, making sure that the expectations are clear up front. Oh, and I just thought of another example too, and this is like me personally sharing out, is just on social media, is maybe they ask me to do something and I've created this beautiful content and I share it out, and either they don't reshare on theirs or they don't give me credit. And so that's kind of one of the things that, like, especially if it's not a paid sponsored post, then some of that value, that the reason that I'm doing this is because I want to be able to reach their followers, and I think it's a good alignment. So it kind of stings a little when, like, I'm putting all this work into it, but then they're not showing that love back and being able to tag the appropriate person. Hopefully that answers that question. Any other examples or any other questions?
I have one, Becky. A couple of weeks ago, we had another workshop around storytelling for your brand, and we were talking about brand partnerships and collaborations. It reminded me of that, of thinking like adding a partnership is like adding another character to your story. I mean, do you spend much time thinking about like the narrative that these partnerships create, like what story you're telling when you and another brand get together?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me kind of see if I can jump back quickly to that slide just to do this one. I think that's exactly what you're asking from a storytelling perspective, is like, that's how I thought through a lot of these examples, was just like, oh, well, okay, there's a blanket. What else would you be doing? Like, your target audience be doing with a blanket? They'd be cozying up, and maybe they're sipping on some coffee, or maybe they're just getting cozy. So it's thinking through that example and that use case, and making it more of a story. And just a few of these different, but I like that perspective because you're building your brand, and the way to kind of elaborate on that is by working with another brand, and they might be able to bring something to the table that you're not able to do on your own. So I really like that example of adding a character to your story. All right, any other questions?
I'm gonna throw under the bus. Jordan wants to know if you are like putting out a feeler for like maybe 5 different influencers, how many of those 5 should we expect to respond? Or
Yeah, I think it comes back to, again, like how you reach out to them. And so that's actually, if you do that, like obvious copy and paste, and some people even forget to change the name when they're doing the copy and paste, you don't expect to hear back from as many, unless they're just like really adamant about your brand and want to work together, or like they want to grow their business in a certain way. If you are taking that time to like do your research and be able to connect with them, sometimes it might take a little like be able to do a DM and an email, but asking them clearly like what's the best way to communicate together, because sometimes their DMs, things might get lost in there. But often they might have like their email in their bio on Instagram as well. And so I do think that's great, is again, it comes down to bandwidth as well, is you could reach out to 5 at once, as long as you are willing to then manage 5 at once. And so maybe you do it in a tiered approach as well. Reach out to one person, you don't hear back from them, reach out to another, but it comes down to your budget and your bandwidth.
Okay. And then recently we had somebody kind of reach out to us for like a potential collaboration, but I think what we learned from that interaction is that when we do it, ask somebody else, like have maybe a specific idea of the ask, or like a plan or an idea, because they were like, there was none of that really. And so it was almost like it was on us to think of a way we could be connected, and we didn't really. And so
and then it's kind of being like, it's putting that work on you. So again, you're co-hosting this party and they're like, let's host together, but you're going to do all the work. Yeah. So that a great thing to do from there is like, let's hop on a call together and talk through ways, as like, try to like, I don't know, define that a little bit further, is like, do you want to ideate something together and think of a way, if you look at their account or their following and see like, is it worth your time putting time into that, and kind of get some feelers back a little bit, or are they willing to put a little work into this? If they're not, and you don't have that bandwidth, then that's something you don't need to even say it's not a great fit for you at this time. But that's also when that comes back to when I was talking about reaching out to people, is like giving a little bit of structure, but giving a little bit of wiggle room as well, just so that you're not fully defining it for the person, but you're clearly showing that you're serious about this and that you have goals that you want to achieve, and that any time that they spend working with you is going to be worthwhile because it's moving somewhere. Because a lot of influencers and a lot of just successful business owners, they might be like, oh, let's do coffee, or like, I love to pick your ear, I'd love to like talk about something, but like, what are they getting out of this? It was a I think it was Crust and Cocktails event at Cedar and Cotton, which I'm so sad they're closing. But Amanda was talking about, she's like, if you are going to ask somebody to coffee, like what are you going to talk about? Don't like, they're taking an hour or 2 hours out of their time to be able to chat with you, and maybe you're just running an idea by them, or maybe you're asking them to do a partnership. But be clear with that up front so that they know they're not just like coming there and like spending their time like and not really getting anything out of that.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Well, I want to thank you all for taking some time out of your days or your busy days and creating all the beautiful products and services you have for Baltimore, taking time to just chat through this with me. I love seeing just when people are pairing up and doing creative things together. And I'll do a shameless plug of be sure to add hashtag creatives to it. That's ultimately where we get all of our content to share, is people reach out and ask how can they get featured, use the hashtag, and that's where we find people. And that's a great way for you to be able to connect with other companies as well, and other brands and influencers to work together.